клавиши.
до сих пор, пока я его не уронил, можно было тачпадом пользоваться.
Всем привет! Я рада открывать
Good morning,
сервис для вас.
everyone. I'm really happy to open
The
C-section for you. I've been working in SQA company for more than 8 years. I'm testing the interfaces, and now I will tell you how we integrated the manual testers in our activity. So let's start. So our company has been working for more than 30 years. We've been developing a Compass 3D system of automatic testing. This is a free application used to design very complex things. The software is used widely in machine building, oil and gas, and many other sectors. It allows to get a full set of documentation for any design product, like drawings, documentation, etc. So we update it once per year. Once we needed automatic testing which would work through UI, and we had to develop our own autotest system. It worked like a recorder, but at the end, other developers decided to use the same system, and at the end it was used to check not only interface but functionality, the productivity, graphics, and the volume of work was immense. We couldn't cover it with the capacity we had, so we faced the question what to do. And also we needed automatic testing for very narrow, very complex functionality. And so that you understand what I mean, every tester has engineering and technical background, and he has an experience of working as a designer in the production manufacturing enterprises. Some of them are doing only the drawings, so they have some narrow specialization. So we decided to hire specialists on automatic testing, but we wanted our manual testers to write scenarios and then providing it to these experts. But when we started to look at it more closely, we understood that it's not that easy to describe our scenarios, because the information becomes distorted. So in many cases we needed to record the whole videos so that the specialists on automatic testing could understand how to deploy the model in the space, which edges to choose. So it was very complex, and the test could go wrong just because the mouse was moved not from left to right but from right to left. So it was not possible to make our testers to make these videos, but the recording of auto tests was quite simple. So we thought, okay, if manual testers can make videos, they can use a recorder, right? So that's why we started to move in this direction. And actually, when we make test recorder, we get then not the test itself, but we get a draft code which becomes a test after we add check of some data. For example, here our manual testers didn't know how to add these checks, so we make this process automatic for them. So we thought which tests and checks in particular can be used by them, and we made this interface recorder in the form of checkbox. So before the tests are recorded, they click this checkbox, then they record a test, then they go to a special status, and then they make a control point. So you make a query pressing just one button, and then into this control point automatically, without the user involvement, all the data checking is recorded, those data which he chose before the test. So it was very good development which allowed our manual testers to make auto tests without knowing even the basics of programming. This scheme was used, and it worked like so. Our manual testers were recording out our automatic tests. They started actively to make these tests. They were very glad that regress could be moved to automatization. Then it went to testing framework, but the results were processed by other people, highly qualified professionals having good expertise in automatic testing. So the manual testers were not involved in that. That was one of the reasons why we got problems at the end. And another reason was that the scenario for manual testing is not fit to the automatization. It might seem obvious, but it was a revelation for us, because manual testing, it's assumed that those who do this, they have to take a look at the product continuously and looking for some bugs in the product. In automatization, you cannot afford that. All the automatic testing is aimed at catching a particular bug in some specific point, and that is done by checking the relevancy of the data, comparability of the data. And the first problem that we faced was more like a human factor. It was instability, because our testers started to make tests, but the local testing was okay, but then when they started to send the tests into the depository, everything collapsed. Why? Because they didn't understand how the tests worked, and they didn't need it. For them, the knowledge how to record tests was enough. So they did not think about how the tests behave in the common space, and the main problem was working with the files. So we open the file for editing, then close it, and then test doesn't get access to it. Then we open the file and save some changes, and also didn't think that some test can go into this file, see these changes, and then it is blocked. It stopped. So that's why we created several rules, and we told the testers that's the way you can do it, that's the way you cannot make the code. But how to counteract, how to control it, how to manage that. So we invented hook which checks execution of these rules. So how does it work? Earlier manual testers, they could use some low-quality autotests without any problem. But now we have this special hook. When somebody tries to mark a test, either new or changed, the hook grasps this commit, checks the whole content, checks everything, processing of the files, using the files, some actions, even whether the test is made up in the proper way, and if everything is okay, it lets it through. If hook finds some bugs, then it blocks commit and returns to the automatic testing system message, error message. Sorry, we cannot let it through, and it cannot go to the depository. It was very efficient, because even if you work with autotests many times, there is a chance that you miss something, do not see something. But this hook guarantees 100% that autotests with clear, simple errors not get into the depository and don't spoil it. So the next problem is the time of execution. It was extended unproportionally to the quantity of added tests, and the reason was irrational scenarios. Irrationality was caused by several reasons. The first and the most important was that the test data were prepared inside the tests. It was easier for the testers to draw a simple cube, simple shape, directly for recording during recording a test, instead of doing that in advance, saving it to the server, and then when recording test, just opening ready file from the server. Yeah, we save 4 seconds. For manual testing, 4 seconds is nothing, but when we do it automatically, it's different. 4 seconds is quite a lot of time. And if we have at least 50 tests like that, and our tests are run around 20 times per day, so then we spend at least 1 hour in vain, which could be used more efficiently. Next reason of rationality was some unnecessary actions. So earlier we could add 2 lines to the table, and these additional lines, they waste our time, and it's not clear why we need them. And the last irrationality was the loops in these scenarios. Let's look at the example of a browser. For example, you open a tab in the browser and then immediately close it. Before you open a tab and after you close it, you get to the same state of the system, and our scenario is becoming looped like that. This is the simplest example of a loop. Actually, loops can be much more complex, consisting of many actions, which are sometimes not very obvious. But why is it bad? Because here we have to make check very carefully, because if you put the check in this point, so what then happens here? So you cannot cache. Why do you need this loop? Remove it. If it's too complex, too big, it can be brought to a different test. And also checks at the input and output of the loop, we think that it will catch the bug. Okay, at the output it can be cached the bug if some action is not fulfilled, but at the input it's completely useless. So if you want to write tests and you think that the loop is needed, then put the checks here. So actually, in order to avoid mistakes with the checks, we can look at each action in the scenario and think whether our check will find something that might go wrong. So the next thing, we've got so-called simple, green, and evergreen tests. So they were used for the functionality, but they couldn't catch the bugs. The reason was that, I don't know why, but everybody who writes scenarios and write autotests, they are concentrated on getting a green stable test, so that it's not broken, does not break other tests. But the main objective of the test is not to be broken, but to catch the bugs. And sometimes we put the checks not in the right order, so we check wrong data or at wrong time. So, and the block box played a very important role in it, because manual testers, they don't have access to the code of the product, and so how can we understand that? So after we write a test, we can use a very tricky thing. So we use so-called mutation testing. If you don't know what is that, read about that. So immediately after you record a test, you can check it in 2 ways. In the first case, we can test it on the right testing data, which is on which it's fulfilled in our framework. In the second case, we check whether test can be broken in case of a bug. And the reason of the bug was provoked by us by providing wrong test data. So we provided test data which were for sure creating the bug in the functionality in which the test was used. As a result, that was all we could check and find. So we made a list of theses which have to be followed by everybody who is only starting automatization, who is switching from manual to automatic testing. And here you see on the screen all these
Но по итогу что же мы получили?
things. So what did we get at the end, and what did we want to make? So we wanted to make a base for regression testing. For that, we didn't have to hire additional employees. We didn't have to make bulky test case for automatization. But so earlier, 30% of time of our testers was spent on regression. Currently, as regress is more or less automatic, so it's only 5% of time, and the rest of the time our manual testers use this 25% of saved time to write automatic tests. And additional bonus is absence of overlaps between manual testing and automatization. See, as we have a very narrow specialization, every tester has a very narrow specialization. He knows his functionality very well, and he knows very well what's been covered by automatic testing and what was not. And when we start global regression check, he knows where he can make a very shallow testing and where he shall be very attentive and go into it very deeply. So that's more or less it. So organizers asked me to remind you that you have these kind of smiles in your documents, handouts. So if you like my presentation, so put your smile, or if you don't like, put the negative smile on the board near the entrance. And if you want to ask, please ask something. But also you can ask your questions at the back camp or whatever, whenever you can catch me. So please, your questions. In the clubs, Evgenia, I have two questions. How much time did it take to develop the hook layer, and how much time support of the automatic tests take? So the hook was developed quite quickly. Well, we got very positive effects in very short time, so it was very effective solution. So for the support, well, all the time goes for support. So we have a dedicated team of 2 persons. That's the only thing that had to be done, to allocate 2 additional persons for the support, and they are working on that. My name is Anton, Yes Technologies. So my question is, so you said that demand for auto testing emerged after you switched to the new UI. How much will it cost to write all the tests if the UI is changed? If everything changes, so how much will it cost to rewrite the whole database? Actually, I don't know how much it should change so that we have to rewrite. So we have integrated it in our product, all the names, everything is integrated in it. So in this sense, we don't have to change the automatic tests. So we are developing now it for the Windows, and I don't think we have to change it. Don't you think that code review will substitute your tests, auto tests, if some lead will consider it instead of the hook? No, I don't think so, because at the beginning we were just looking at it, considering it, but that hook took some time to be developed. So auto tests are written by 15 persons, so we make 150 tests per week, a lot of rules and the code is quite bulky. So we have tests for 5 for 10 minutes, so it's not possible to check it visually, just manually, because the amount of rules is quite big. A lot of information, a lot of data in it. Unfortunately, we cannot ask any questions, so we ran out of time.
The next report, please. Thank you for coming. The best question. Someone deserves a T-shirt. I like the girl's question. Give one to her. Thank you very much for your question. One for me too. Thank you. Please don't be shy. Come up to me. Ask questions if you have any.